How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Tremel Taylor. I thank you for that article that you have sent me. And I had planned to do a follow-up video on the fires in Australia. I have a bonus video, my royal family, to show the power of Yahweh. It is amazing, truly amazing. Before I do my presentation, my royal family, I have exhausted myself trying to find anything about the Aborigines that live on that land. And the only thing that I did find, which I did present, is that it's part of their culture to have fires, controlled fires. Other than that, I have not found one iota, and let me put them up too while I'm speaking. I have not found one video of the Aborigines. Let me make sure. Do I know how to spell Aborigine? Okay, there it is. That's one of those. It really is easy to spell when I look back at it. Just add that AB on there. Origines. So, let's get a look at them. I have not found nothing. I don't know how they are being affected at all. But should we be surprised by Esau's behavior? They're bitching and moaning about their immediate situation. And I've seen tons of videos about how the animals are being affected, but nothing else. That's it. It's either what's going on with them and how they are rescuing the animals and not the people who originate from that land. So as we continue on. So, Tremel Taylor had sent me these pictures here. It's 52 of them, and I'm going to show them all to show the effects of this fire and how the divine hand ain't playing at all. And you can see that red fire retardant. And I've heard people, especially the enemy, never heard us, complain about having that stuff dumped on their house while it's burning down. Not grateful at all. And these pictures, because I've been through them already, I think they're up to date because I see here February 2nd. And wow, look at the landscape there. And they just, since October, they just been on a continuous battle trying to contain these fires. And what little rain they do get doesn't help it at all. So I thank you, Tremel, for sending these pictures, because this gives us a bird's eye view of what's going on. This ain't no joke. Look at the skies. Wow, amazing. Now this one was taken on the 1st. Look at that. Wow, look at that landscape. That is no joke at all. This woman out here with this water hose, that ain't gonna help. You need to get off of her land. Our Father is speaking volumes, and my interpretation is, while other events that are going on around the world, I'm thinking that our Father is saying, this is what the door sample you're gonna get. That's how I take it. And in these pictures, you are not going to see any of the people that originate from the land. Now, they're in this little river sucking out water to put out the fires. Well, remember, when they are sucking out water, they are sucking out marine life too as well. So the marine life is being affected. Then they got to glorify themselves, and you still see no Aborigines at all. They have not fully contemplated or fully, it's not hitting their frontal lobe or anything like that. It's just, woe me. Why do we have to go through this? This is deep. Okay, people have died in these fires. As they continue on, people are coming from different parts of the country. This firefighter, he's the chief of police. He's been very candid. He can't be nothing but candid. He can't sell nobody no wolf tickets. And these are the people that continue. Look at them. Look like they come straight out of a motherfucking cave. That desecrate Australia. And they got their little fancy trucks and things like that, but you cannot contain this fire. They're using some of the finest equipment that they have. They call this particular plane the C-130 Hercules plane. You know, they can dump all this water. And you know, they're in a drought too as well. Yep. The Prime Minister ignored climate change. Look at this. You got people from Japan. He don't give a damn. But what he don't like is he got to go into their funding and start dealing with their immediate situation while they continue to beg for assistance. The military. Now, you know, things have hit an all-time low when you have to get the military to contain a fire. And then this is how they show that they care. You know, they being, you know, thoughtful. It don't mean we don't care about animals. But what happened to the Aborigines? They're the same wherever they land their feet. So, that's the last photo. And I'm going to play this video that's a little over, it's 11 minutes. Might as well say it's 11 minutes. And this video was done, I think it was last month. But when I was watching it, it was just so important that we hear what they have to say. Australia fires, misleading maps and pictures go viral. Well, let's see what's going on.
Now, Australia's bushfires have burnt through 8 billion hectares of land since September. Remarkably, smoke can now be seen 12,000 kilometers away in Argentina and also in Chile. Have a look at this image from Santiago, which has come in the last few hours, with smoke seen across the city. Also, the World Wildlife Foundation is saying up to 1 billion animals may have been killed directly or indirectly by the fires. We also know almost 2,000 homes have been destroyed and at least 24 people have died. Among them are 3 volunteer firefighters. Here's an image from the funeral of Andrew O'Dwyer, who was killed in December, and this is his little daughter being given her father's helmet and service medal at the ceremony. And thousands of firefighters are involved in trying to contain this vast crisis, and while milder weather is helping their efforts at the moment, unfortunately more hot, dry conditions will return soon. And still, New South Wales and the southeast of Australia is the worst affected. Let's begin in the southeast of the state. The BBC's Jonathan Head is there.
Well, I'm now in the town of Wingelow. The fire service here has been unbelievably busy over the weekend trying to save this town. The fire that struck this place roared in from back there. The firefighters here put up an epic battle, one they describe in almost apocalyptic terms, as this fire roared through with a massive cloud of ash, the sky completely red. And the firefighters here described battling on all fronts to try to save the town. It's a town of around 400 people. They thought they would lose the entire town. The fire came up here. It leapt over the road, and you can see the ground over there is completely scorched, going towards the railway line. And that's where the firefighters say they stopped it. They stopped it from going further over and getting more homes. People have come back to this town now. The weather's cooler. There are fires some distance away. It's still a bit smoky, but they've been able to come back, look at their homes, and they describe a feeling almost of elation that nobody was hurt, nobody was killed, and that they didn't lose more homes. This is one of so many communities in Australia now that are reeling from these fires and assessing the damage that they've suffered, worrying, of course, too, that the hot season has only just started and they may get more fiery weather to come.
Well, not far from where Jonathan recorded that is another rural community called Wandandian, also in New South Wales. The BBC's Lucy Hockings is there.
Temperatures have been cooler here. A little bit of rain has fallen across the state and Victoria, which has really taken the pressure off people. But it does feel like we're all in a state of limbo, particularly the residents who live here, because the intense heat and the wind is set to return here in the coming days. And there is the constant smoke and air pollution. It's been really bad across the state, particularly in the capital of Australia, Canberra, where they gave out free masks to people today to try and cope with the pollution, and in Melbourne as well.
Well, this is a human disaster. It's an environmental disaster as well. Here we have the World Wildlife Foundation estimating that more than 1 billion animals may have been killed directly or indirectly by these fires. And Lucy has been speaking with some of those involved in rescuing animals.
And here we have a baby mountain brush-tailed possum. So he's had to be evacuated as well with us. He'll be released into the wild. These guys are in care for a very long time. We'll have him for close to a year. Baby kangaroos and wombats are in care for about 2 years, so it's a long time commitment. It's going to take decades and decades for the bush to regenerate properly. You know, the impacts of fire, beyond just what we see with the green tree leaves and all that sort of stuff. There's impacts to the soil, there's impacts to the insects and all that sort of stuff. You just, year after year, see less and less frogs. You see less and less, you know, of those little species that can't handle big changes. So, yeah, it's, you know, it's really scary.
Unfortunately, this crisis isn't going anywhere in the near future. Here's the latest assessment from the Bushfire Recovery Agency.
We have unaccounted for people across Australia. We have over 1,800 homes have been destroyed, and that's before we even begin to count the cost of outhouses, of sheds, of public places, of schools. The heartbeat of some of these communities is before we even begin to count the cost to business, to those people who may not have lost their homes, but they don't have a place to turn up for work today. They're not sure how their next paycheck is going to arrive. The cost of this is unprecedented. I'm under no illusions about the size of the challenge that is ahead of us.
Now, many different images have been used to show the scale of these fires, but we need to be careful about what we think we're looking at. You may have seen this image. It's been very, very widely shared, with a lot of people claiming it's a satellite image. It's definitely not. It's a visualization that's based on NASA data from across the last month. So where you see different parts of the country glowing, that represents any area that's been affected by fires since December. So it's a stark image, but it's definitely not a moment in time. In fact, the artist who created this has called it a prettier looking graph, which is quite different. It's also worth saying that these are not the deadliest fires in Australia's history, despite them being unprecedented in many ways. If you go back to 2009, 173 people died in the state of Victoria, and that fire was brought under control within weeks. These fires are already several months old, and as we've been saying, they're likely to continue for several months more. Bear in mind the fire season has only just begun. Now, as we discussed many times on Outside Source, these fires have become intensely political. Prime Minister Scott Morrison is accused by critics of not doing enough about the crisis or about climate change. There's political heat going elsewhere too. The Green Party is accused of failing to support hazard reduction burning. This is where land where there's a high density of particularly dry scrub, referred to as fuel load, is deliberately burnt to reduce risk. Have a look at this quote from the Prime Minister Scott Morrison recently, saying the most constant issue that's been raised with me has been the issue of managing fuel loads in national parks. He went on to say that people who say they are seeking those actions on climate change don't share the same urgency of dealing with hazard reduction. And we've heard these criticisms repeatedly. Here's one example from YouTube of these points being made, particularly in the direction of the Green Party.
Just to show what actually is the cause of all these big fires. Not climate change, just bad management from way up above in politicians, therefore the Greens.
But here we have the Greens website. The party says it supports hazard reduction burning where appropriate, and it goes on to say, and this is the quote from Scott Morrison, but it goes on to say, attempts by right-wing pundits and politicians to place the blame on the Greens represent the worst kind of dishonest politics. And if you want an assessment of whether the Greens are getting in the way on this issue, here's the fire chief in the state of Victoria.
The reality is we've had fire down the landscape here that has had burns go right through it, and it hasn't slowed it up at all. And so the emotive argument is not supported that fuel reduction burning on a large scale will fix all our problems. It should be treated as one part of an integrated approach. What's been really successful for us in these firefights is how we're actually working in with communities before the fires go through. Part of that will be fuel reduction burning, but we can put ploughs through. We can prepare communities before the fire goes through, which is actually giving us a lot more success than broad-scale burning. So yes, burning is important, but some of the hysteria that this will be the problem that solves, or the solution to all our problems, is really just quite an emotional load of rubbish, to be honest.
Now, while some people are looking at what caused these fires, people who've lost their homes are facing the question of how and whether to rebuild. And of course, they're desperate to know if their insurance will come through. Here's the government's treasurer on the number of claims so far.
There's around 8,500 insurance claims, totalling around $700 million in losses that have already been made.
Many people affected by these fires may not be fully covered by their insurance. Here's Courtney Bembridge, an Australian journalist based with the OS team, on that issue.
It's always difficult in these areas that have been either burnt by fire before or are fire prone. Insurance premiums are often very, very high, and also you get a situation where many people are underinsured. So they may insure the cost of building their house, but over time that goes up, and also the cost of construction after a fire is much higher than when you're first building the home. Sometimes also if people have a mortgage, they'll have to, the banks can kind of use the insurance payout to pay off the mortgage, and then you have to get another mortgage basically to rebuild. So it's not as easy as people kind of getting the amount and starting to rebuild. Often this takes months and years to kind of get people back on their feet after an event like this, and often they're out of pocket to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So that perhaps is one of the reasons we're seeing lots of calls for donations to help Australians, but some viewers might be thinking, well, Australia is a relatively wealthy country. Why does it need donations from overseas to help take on this crisis? Is it just about insurance?
No, so a lot of it is about caring for these people who are displaced now. Some people haven't lost their homes yet, but they're waiting to see what happens with the fire, or their homes are in the path of the fire. So they've been taken to evacuation centres, they need to be fed, they need water, they need food. All of that is run by volunteer organisations, not to mention the fact that these fires are actually being fought by mostly volunteers. Those people need to be fed, they need to have water, and they need resources. So all of that is funded by volunteer organisations, the Red Cross. Then you've also got wildlife. An unprecedented number of animals have been affected by this, and so all of those organisations are going in and rescuing animals. Some of those take years to rehabilitate because of the state of their burns, and so that takes a very long time to kind of get them back on their feet. The first port of call obviously is just fighting this fire, and because that is a volunteer organisation, they'll be focusing on that, but there are a wide range of causes as this thing stretches out for months and years that will still need ongoing support, and that's where the dollars are going.
Wow, this shit is deep. that was the reason why I wanted to present this video to the royal family. They didn't mention the Aborigines. It's like they are a non-factor, but they're being true to their nature. So let's see what we got here. Okay, we're just looking at these here like I presented with. So I have another video that is pretty deep to me. Why Australia is on fire. And this is current. This was put up today, in fact.
This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Get access to my streaming video service Nebula when you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description. Flames, licking the coats of koalas, melting trees straight to ash. Hell on earth. Australia is on fire. Footage of the raging bushfires seems to be taken right out of a disaster movie, except this time there's no magical happy ending. I sit and scroll through videos of the wreckage and feel fear and helplessness. And I can't help but ask, how did we get to this point? Why is Australia on fire? And what about the fires in the Congo Basin and Amazon rainforest that seem to have been pushed to the side as we zoom in on the consequences of an Australia on fire? The devastation of Australian bushfires is extensive. Evacuees have fled to wetter, safer grounds, as one professor estimates that more than 500 million animals have already died in the raging infernos. These bushfires, which at times reached 70 meters tall, have scorched every state in Australia, but primarily continue to decimate two regions in the southeast, New South Wales and Victoria. And since the beginning of the dry season in September, these fires burned an estimated 7.3 to 10 million hectares of land, reducing towns like Balmoral to ash. As I write this, at least 28 people have died in the deadly inferno. This apocalyptic destruction is the result of a perfect storm of conditions. 2019 was both Australia's hottest and driest year on record. Combined with strong winds, the 2019-2020 bushfire season was primed to be a destructive one. And indeed, the number of fires skyrocketed in November and continue to be a problem as the Australian dry season drags on. The record temperatures and lack of rain are, as climate experts assert, a prime example of how climate change exacerbates natural disasters. And as these fires burn, they push the world further towards the precipice by releasing almost 400 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But Australia is not the only place experiencing an uptick in devastating wildfires. Bushfires are a global phenomenon. They pepper Indonesia and scorch Siberia. Today, though, we are going to focus on the ones that burn swaths of Amazon rainforest, as well as the flames that engulf Central Africa. Months ago, the world was in uproar about the fate of the Amazon rainforest. It was hurting, and hurting badly. The result of clear-cutting and burning strategies enacted to open up space for cropland and, more specifically, animal agriculture. And despite the lack of headlines these days, the Amazon continues to burn. In 2019, human-caused and out-of-control fires burned 976,200 hectares of Amazon rainforest. That's the third highest increase in the rate of deforestation in the Amazon's history, at a 30% jump from the prior year, second only to 1995, which was 95%, and 1998, which was 31%. The Amazon represents a hub of biodiversity and tackles the essential task of sequestering millions of pounds of carbon dioxide each year. Essentially, it is the green lung of the earth. And as regulations loosened in Brazil, loggers and intensive ranchers set fire to the edges of the rainforest to make way for industrial endeavors. The The Amazon has experienced devastating deforestation before, but as the effects of destroying forest by fire accumulate, the Amazon shrinks, and smaller amounts of deforestation have a greater impact. To top it all off, climate change once again makes these fires worse, as hotter temperatures and drier landscapes make these tree-clearing burns much harder to maintain. If you scroll across the world on the wildfire tracking app Windy, it seems like all of Central Africa is engulfed in flames, a region decidedly larger than the Amazon. But there's a difference between Amazonian fires and those in the Congo Basin. The fires in Central African countries are primarily seasonal and situated on savanna and grasslands. They lick at the edges of the Congo rainforest, but have yet to encroach as much onto the forest's core. In part, this is due to the way grasslands react to fire, as well as how fires are used. Farmers and ranchers in Central Africa have implemented controlled burns on grasslands for centuries. They set fire to dried grasses before the wet season to use as ash for fertilizer and purge disease and pests from the land. This is a much different process than in Brazil, where fires are used indiscriminately as a tool to clear old-growth rainforests out of the way for large, high-carbon animal agriculture businesses. Indeed, the Central African savanna might not even exist without continuously controlled burns. After the fire season, savanna often grows back quickly and vibrantly. So many of these fires are seasonal, small agricultural burns in the resilient savanna, as opposed to the highly destructive Brazilian practices of setting fire to swaths of rainforests that can take over 30 years to grow back. But if left unchecked, unregulated fires reaching into the Congo rainforests could mean a real problem for its ecosystem. And as climate change heats up the planet and inevitably makes these regions drier, the Congo rainforest becomes much more susceptible to out-of-control fires. Senior forest manager with Greenpeace Africa, Irene Wabiwa Batoko, told French public radio service RFI they're very worried that the forests in the Congo Basin are more and more exposed, more vulnerable to fire because those forests are threatened by an increase in the pace of deforestation. Activists like Vanessa Nakate are taking action to raise consciousness, but it will require large cultural and agricultural shifts across several Central African countries to prevent the encroaching pace of deforestation of the Congo rainforest. At the end of the day, it comes down to regulation. Some of these fires are inevitable and natural, or tied to long-held agricultural traditions that are essential to healthy grasslands. But the increased intensities of the infernos we are seeing recently are in part caused by the dismantling of environmental regulations in favor of neoliberal free market policies that allow large corporations to harm people and land with impunity. So let's travel back to Australia for a moment and talk about Prime Minister Scott Morrison. In December, while the country was battling raging infernos, its leader was safely tucked away on vacation in Hawaii. This speaks volumes to how Morrison has ignored the issue and consequences of climate change in favor of more profitable and comfortable avenues. The Prime Minister is a champion of Australia's $70 billion coal industry. In 2015, as Treasurer, he brought a piece of coal to the Parliament floor and told us all not to be afraid.
This is coal. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared.
While the country he works for continues to burn, he still stands behind the coal industry, an industry that undoubtedly gave rise to the climate change that is now intensifying the tragedies of Australian bushfires. Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, has taken a similar approach. He slashed Brazil's environmental enforcement agency by $23 million, penned an executive order handing the control of certifying indigenous lands over to the Agriculture Administration, and nominated an environmental minister convicted of fudging environmental protection plan maps to aid mining companies. Leaders like Morrison and Bolsonaro are thus partly to blame for the fires their countries face. They have the power and influence to regulate and transition their societies towards an emissions-free, just world. One that would mean less climate change and ultimately more manageable fires. And yet, in the face of this clear but difficult path, they refuse to do anything of the sort. Instead, they fight tooth and nail to give for-profit industries ever more power at the expense of the health of the land and the safety of their countries, all in exchange for political gain. If you're exhausted of hearing my voice and are looking for some really great nature-related documentaries, I'd highly recommend checking out this video's sponsor, Curiosity.
All right, my royal family, that spoke volumes. And Trump is doing the same damn thing. They don't believe in global warming at all. They're looking at their bottom line. And essentially, they saying they don't give a damn about the air they breathe or even their children or grandchildren. They don't even care about their immediate situation. They looking at that bottom line. And the damn Australia's prime minister got the nerves to now beg on a global scale. He want people to fund this. Why the profits that they have made from the coal industry, you don't want none of that touch. Well, it's going to be touch because other countries are going to have to deal with their immediate situation. This is judgment. We know what's going on, my royal family. So as I continue on, I said that I had a bonus video, and it just shows you how swift our Father works. So let's check out how fast things can happen. Blow this up. I mean, this is some amazing stuff when you see it. No sound. And Australia bush, what did they say up here? Australian bushfire goes from clear to hellscape in less than a minute. Let's check it out. Let's just sit here and watch. Look at this. And this, they have this dated 1/4. They a day ahead of us? I gotta check that. I have to see what the time difference is in the States compared to Australia. But this is very recent. You know, when I seen it, I was blown away. It don't even look like the same place. They knew to haul ass and get up out of there. That is judgment. Like I said, fire will make you have a clear understanding. If those people would have stayed there, they would not have lived through that. I don't even know if they were even able to get away fast enough. That's another good question. You know. Look at that. Pure, it's like pure hell. Ooh, the intensity. And it's very unforgiving when these fires come through. They desecrate anything in its way. It's a purification process too. Wow. So they are in their summer over there, so the climate is pretty intense. The heat is pretty intense. Then you got the wind, and then you got to remember these trees and leaves and grass have oils. So it's like the perfect storm. I wanted to share that with the royal family. And one more picture I want to share with the royal family. Let's put all this on lockdown. I don't want nothing to pop up. I will just take this down all the way. Remember what I said, my royal family, when I did a video a few months ago about the fires that they had here in California? And our father was speaking to me at that particular time. He said he would keep Esau exhausted. And I didn't fully fathom what he meant, but I'm getting a big picture now what he mean. While we continue to have on a global scale these natural disasters, Esau likes, they're glory hogs. They like to come in with their fancy equipment and show everybody what they can do. Well, the divine hand is truly in charge. These people have worked themselves to the point of exhaustion. When you got the military have to stop doing everything they doing and focusing on this, this is judgment, truly judgment. We don't know when these fires are gonna go out, but they'll go out in our Father's time. But I know one thing: He don't want the people that took that land from these beautiful people here who was not bothering anyone, and the atrocious things that they did to them, and they don't seem to be getting it. They don't care. And that's my point in these videos that I've been showing the last few days. They don't care. They are demonstrating their true nature. Their true nature when their immediate situation is affected. That's all I can say. This is not new to the royal family. There'll be more to come, my royal family. More to come. So, there was one message I want to leave to the royal family. Many of you have been sending me emails, and I've been sending them back, links back to everyone who wants, how can I put it? I know something that we can take to build up our immune system quickly. And I found a video the other day that will better explain how that particular item, I'm speaking on code because y'all don't want me to put it out. So just come to me and I will email you the actual link to the video too as well. And if anybody didn't get the link to which you can order to help, this will help your family. And I have never seen anything work as fast like this. My whole family is drinking it. So email me, continue to email me, and I will send you the link to where you can buy it and also the video to support it, because I always like the royal family to do their own research. Don't ever take my word for anything. Go out there and do your own research. I make mistakes like anybody else, and point it out to me, send me an email and say, okay, True Royal, you were saying this and that, but I got something else to add to it, or you might not quite have got it right. I will not be offended, because I'm just worried about making sure I do it right, and I can't do this alone. So I appreciate it. My prayers continue to go out to the Aborigines over there that continue to be affected by the enemy. And they're doing everything they can to continue to desecrate and strip the land. And so we see that Yahweh has stepped in, and a lot of those people are going to get off that island, because she's speaking volumes. She is speaking volumes. She don't want nobody on her island no more. So my royal family, render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.